mean, I feel good. I even look good. But there's something missing.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Free to Speak. This is your girl Free. I'm super excited about today's episode. I have some very special family men or friends of mine and men of mine on the stage or on the what's this called, Daddy? Couch. So on the couch with me, we're gonna talk about, in observance of Father's Day, we're gonna talk to these men and kind of get their perspective on things, hear their hearts. We're going to deal with mental health today. We're going to deal with fatherhood, just being a provider, the pressures of life, being misunderstood by the general public. And I hope you guys can kind of just hear them out. And then we as women could be more supportive and just hear from them and be more supportive of what they're needing from us as their wives and sisters and family members, okay? So let's just introduce the person to my right.
Breaking Up Power, Senior Pastor, World Changer Tabernacle.
He is my daddy. And then the person to my left.
Deontay Davidson, father of 6.
Yes, he is my brother, the wife, the husband of my friend, my best friend, Demetrius. And Uncle Pastor Mike.
And I am Michael Ellison, and I'm a father of many.
He is. My daddy calls him Father Time.
Historical father.
My daddy calls him Father Time, but I call him, you'll hear me say quite often, Uncle Pastor Mike. So that's who I'm talking about. I'm talking about who he calls Father Time. He's always been my Uncle Pastor Mike. Deontay's always been bruh, and this is Daddy. But I just wanted them to give y'all their professional numbers and all of that, okay? We know at Free to Speak, we're very informal. Ain't it right, Daddy?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, I want to just hear about you guys, like, what do you think about fatherhood? What does that mean to you? Like, did you have a father in your life? And if you did or didn't, how did that translate over to your children?
Well, I'll start for me. Being a father, raised up without a father. When I say without a father, I mean my biological dad transitioned and my mother never remarried. So I was sharing with Father Time with them that my father figure was Mr. Otis Scott.
Mm-hmm.
That inspired me to be the man I am today as a father. So, but being a father with 2 biological and 2 by way of marriage has always been a reward. Challenges it within itself, but it does require you to just understand the dynamics of fathering.
Yeah, I think the thing that we kind of had an advantage, I think, more than I think other blended families, because we kind of knew each other anyways.
Yes.
Prior to the divorce and separation of my mother and my biological father, and then prior to the separation, divorce of you and your first wife, our families intertwined anyways. And so, me and Junior laugh about how, we like going over his house just to hang out with him. We love April and PJ. I love you dearly. But it was like, he cooked. And so we just enjoyed that fatherly, because we didn't have that fatherly moments with our biological father. And so we enjoyed it. And I think he enjoyed it as well. So I think a lot of times we just kind of spent the night just to hang out with
Bounce off each other.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, for myself, I did have my father in my life, but if anyone ever grew up with a military father, he was physically present,
yes,
but mentally
not there.
And so with that, I gleaned from his physicalness of being a provider.
Right.
He didn't pour into me the essentials of, what most of us feel we need as far as how to be a man.
Right.
But as far as back in those days, we all knew that the man had to be the provider,
right,
protect the family.
Right.
And he did those essentials.
Right.
But as far as really hearing the word love or the actual showing of it, particularly from him physically, it wasn't present.
Right.
But even from that, with his father, but my mother being in the home, we knew what love was when we understood his role and how he showed it.
Do you think it was a generational thing? Because my biological dad was in the military too. And I think that he showed us that he loved us, or what he would say loved us, because he felt like he was providing physically for the home. Is that like a generational thing? Like, is there somewhere where you guys weren't able to express yourselves to where it can translate to children, like in a more than a physical way? Like my dad felt like he was a father because he was physically there, or he worked, but the relationship we did not have. Even up until death, me and my brother had to be okay with just not having that kind of relationship. I think that's why we gleamed to him so much, because we had an actual relationship, you know?
I can speak just on the paternal side of my family. Growing up with my dad's side of the family more than I did my mother's, that side of the family was one of those where the men were hard workers. It was just a unspoken rule of, this is how you do it.
Right.
It wasn't that they came to you particularly and said, hey, this is what you do. It's just pretty much how, people say with children, although we say, hey, you do this, they're going to watch your actions.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how we were on that side of the family. We saw the actions of every man before us, and we knew that, okay, he provided. Under any circumstances, it was always provision.
Right.
Under any circumstances, we always knew and felt protected because they were there present for that watch.
Right.
Now, as far as emotionally being connected, that part, not so much.
Right.
There was more connections with the mother and other people in the family, but the men knew they stayed on the wall. They protected the family, looked down, and they provided for them. So they never had to worry about that part.
Uncle Pastor Mike, Daddy calls you Father Time. So you probably know back in those generations.
Wait a minute now. Wait. Come on now.
No, but for real, I would like to get an honest, like an opinion of yours, because you are the eldest on the stage right now. And so you can give a perspective that we may not be able to, give, as far as the missing link between fathers then and fathers now. The physical, thinking that I'm physically there, I'm physically providing, versus now needing that, children are needing that, we always needed, I think, that emotional connection as well.
Yeah. I had a rather strange situation. My father too had been in the military. I think he served in World War II. And he came back with a lot of what we know of now as PTSD. We didn't know that back then. But he had some of that. And my father was an alcoholic. And he was present. He was physically there, but there was no emotional part to that. I often refer to him always going to baseball games, but he never took me. So I grew up with the idea something must be wrong with me, and he don't want people to see me or know that I'm his son for some reason.
Wow.
But that's just how I thought. I don't think that was his reason. He just didn't take us,
Right.
or take me. So for me. And then along with that, it was hard to just know who, as I got older, to know really who you were, because at an early age, when my father came from the Augusta, Georgia area, he changed his name, his last name.
Wow.
So my last name is Ellison, but in actuality, my last name not supposed to be Ellison.
Really?
And it was not legally changed. But at that time, prior to going into military, whatever name you went into the military was considered as your legal name.
Right.
So he went in, he adopted someone in our area, which we called him uncle. We thought it was our real. But in later years, come to find out, my father never had any sisters, or brothers, neither on my mother's side. So we didn't have uncles or aunts because they didn't have sisters or brothers. They was all, married into a family together. So that was kind of strange for us.
Right. So what it sounds like I'm hearing is that from the older generation down to the current generation, I think we're becoming more sensitive, and this kicks us off into mental health, because I heard, you talk about your dad being in the military, your dad was in the military, my dad was in the military, and your dad worked on the railroad, but he was gone before you had a relationship. So I know what it was like in our home with my dad, and I did not understand where he was coming from in life until recently.
Yeah.
Prior to like young, we thought we were missing on something, but in actuality, the men from that generation, especially military men, it seems like they were very limited on their resources or education, on being educated on what actually was going on with them. And the little bit they knew, they passed to each other, which was drinking and drugs to kind of cope with, PTSD.
Well, it was their way of coping because they didn't know. See, you have to remember in in that time for me, it was a time where it was very segregated. If you went to the doctor, the whites went in the front, you go in the back. So you don't always get the help. Now, I do remember at one time when Millersville was open, he was taken there to get some treatment for that. But he came back and started doing the same thing because history-wise, they wasn't treated, they were just maintained.
Right. Still, currently.
See, they were just maintained to be able to function. Now, my dad would drink, but he would go to work every day. Drunk.
Functional alcoholic.
So it sounds like living in two different worlds.
Exactly.
That's where you do that.
Now, my mother, on the other hand, was a professional. She was a LPN nurse.
Right. It just sounds so compounded. Like, I think you was getting ready to say something else.
I'm just listening to everything and just realizing that hindsight is always 2020. Like what you're saying, you didn't realize what was going on with him. And just knowing now that, for one, like his father, World War II. My dad did 3 tours in Vietnam. And with him, if anybody knows anything about the military back then, if you had siblings or children who were going to the military at the same time, they cannot be deployed into a war at the same time. That didn't happen with my dad.
Oh, wow.
Him and my uncle ended up in Vietnam at the same spot, same time. One was Marines, one was Army.
Wow.
And we have, he put it on DVD now, but we have reel-to-reel showing of everything they went through.
Yeah.
Them, with the little, almost look like canoe boats going through here and there. And him telling me about the turmoil it brought upon his mom and dad. And I think that also plays a part in their mentality while they're over there versus what they're already going through, not knowing that they're going to make it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they come back home to us, they're shells.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how to deal with it. And for most, as self-medicate, the alcohol, the drugs. They only, talk to each other. And I can remember like it was yesterday that one of my brothers had spoke about it. And for us, we call it speaking out of turn. Because you don't bring those things up to the veterans without them bringing it up first because it is a emotional trigger.
Right.
I seen my father literally take my brother and hang him over a balcony because of PTSD, or what they call back then shell shock.
Yeah.
And then later in life, my father telling us about what he'd been through, being hit with Agent Orange, other different chemicals while they're out there, and the things they saw and couldn't talk about when they came back home, or weren't supposed to talk about to family.
Right.
It's kind of like a secret code where things go on in our lives as men, especially black men, that we try to fix ourselves, but really we're not fixing it. We're creating more of a, I call it like a spread of mold in one's life because you're not talking about the things you're going through.
Because it's not just like the fathers who were in the military that experience PTSD. It's about, the kids, the fathers who never are in the military.
Right.
That experience just street life.
I mean, that was going to be my next section.
Any traumatic event.
On the wrong side. But you know what it does for me as a woman, and I'm just talking to the women that are watching as well. It just makes me applaud the men that I know previous to me, and even you guys and the men that I currently know, because I think that when it comes to just life, we sometimes think about our own selves. We don't take an opportunity to think about others. So I'm sitting here listening to your story, and I've heard your story for 30 plus years. And I was, listening to all y'all stories and just thinking like, this is where you guys come from, but you still are responsible for being the provider of your home. You're still responsible for keeping it together in the public eye, in the streets, because you got people who just, ready and willing to try to throw you guys and lock you guys up under the jail just for the most randomness of things.
Yeah.
And I don't think we considered that, the stress that you guys carry. You know what I'm saying?
Well, even with that, and I guess from my generation, it's called the baby boom, versus a black male factor on the street. When I get behind the police, behind my vehicle, they run my tag all night. I can see them doing it. It comes up who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Average young guy, his tag come up was probably with warrants, stuff like that. It's just things are not lining up. But coming up as and dealing with men as black men, sometimes we don't address the real issues.
You don't.
Which are mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But we hit it with mental health, everybody think automatically people have lost their mind, they're crazy. No, what it is, mental health means the thing we have to process and not to be reacting, but responsive.
We have
things.
But see, back in the day, they didn't call that mental health. They said you were crazy. Or you are out of your mind,
Nervous breakdown.
and even, nervous breakdown, those kinds of things.
right.
And, even to the point, sometimes they would say, he must be demon possessed to be acting the way they acting or something like that.
Things not even considering.
Right.
How much more damaging that is. If you're recognizing that something is like, I talk very candid about me dealing with anxiety and depression, and I didn't realize the word saying free you off will tick me off because it's just, if I may not, be with it at that moment, but saying to me that I'm off is like calling somebody who's shell-shocked crazy. It's the same, equivalence. We have to learn because people who are in their own minds not as mentally healthy as they should be, they're already dealing with the whole lot. Besides the labels, extra words that we throw onto it,
Yeah.
You get ready to say
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about just going back to my childhood. I have to say I was naive to a sense because growing up with a two-parent home, most of the people I interacted with were in two-parent homes also.
Okay.
And so moving here to Georgia, when I first seen people in single parent homes, and not really interacting until I got older, I was thinking back then that everyone's supposed to be like my household.
Right.
Two parents, whether the father's really truly there, but he's there.
Right.
And so as I grew up and, started going over other people's houses, like, what other parent is?
Yeah.
And so having an understanding of everybody's household is not the same.
Right.
The male factor role is not always the same. And that's when I started seeing more of the live-in boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
or all the uncles that were coming through.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that has a big play on it, and also gives this newer generation a whole different idea of what the father role is supposed to be.
Right.
We have to get away from saying that a man has to be present, because he may be present, but is he good for that role?
Right.
Every male factor is not a man. It is not a part of fatherhood.
That's right.
And we have to understand that ourselves had somebody pour into us.
Right.
But was that pour the correct pour?
Right.
I can honestly speak up that from my dad's side of the family, great pour. Where my father left off, my uncles poured in.
Mm-hmm.
But hindsight, looking at some of the older guys that I gleaned to when I put myself into the world, thinking that, some of these gang members who had all the flashiness, had the money, telling me, this is how a man's supposed to be. Definitely the wrong pour.
Definitely.
And some of the younger generation, they see this being glamorized on TV, or different shows we watch, or different things they listen to, and think that that's what a man looks like, and don't realize until after the damage is done that no, that's the wrong route.
Right.
See, and and partly that's why I fathered differently because of what I saw. And all of the men that I knew had children that we played together. Most of their fathers were alcoholic also.
Right.
So we saw it everywhere. And the reason there were two parents back then, because that was the saying, we gonna stay for the sake of the children, but people don't do that no more.
No, not no more.
You know, and I don't blame them for that, because I don't think anybody ought to stay in an abusive
Right.
relationship like that. But back then, that's why they stayed, because my mom and dad fought all the time.
Right. And
You
that's
know.
so unhealthy for children to grow up in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That level of fighting. And I want us to go back and kind of touch back on the mental health, because, and then also correlate it to what you guys do now as fathers, because we talked about where, you know, your example of fatherhood or male mentorship. Tell me now, with mental health in your thought, how that affects how you father. Because you have 6, you got 4,
10 grandkids.
and 10 grandkids, and you got some grandkids too. You got some grandkids. So y'all, I want to hear how, because I think in order for us to, us women, what I'm trying to do with the show is give you guys a platform so we as women can learn how to be more supportive of you guys. Not necessarily just your husband, but my brother, my Uncle Pastor Mike, my dad, you know, like learn how we can be more supportive of you guys as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, I'll speak from my dynamics, because a lot of things in my life played on how I became the man that I am now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in prison 4 years. And during those 4 years, when I left, as they say, left the streets,
Right.
my oldest child was only 12. Youngest, no, I lied, I'm sorry. He was only 8. They were 8, 4, and 6 months old.
Wow.
So when I was gone, it was bothering me mentally knowing that I couldn't be there for him physically to protect him. We're going war speed ahead. Had a talk with some of my sons, and they was telling me what they went through while I was gone. And that changed my whole dynamics of who I need to be now, because of what I lost, I cannot regain.
Right.
Looking back on how my dad fathered and how he still is to this day, I already knew, one, I got to be the protector and the provider no matter what. That's hands down.
That's right.
But now where I stand, especially knowing that I have to be righteous about it, because what I choose is going to pour into them, and what they see is how they want to act upon. Now, of course, you know, as they get older, they're going to have their own free will. They're going to choose to do what they do.
They don't listen, but they gonna wish they did. Please
That
listen
part.
to your daddy.
Yeah. And then I have to give homage to Prophet as well, that the words he speak are true.
Yeah.
And whether you want to listen to them or not, you'll see it
Gonna
come to
wish you
pass.
had.
Yes. And that's how I govern everything. I've been with the ministry with World Changes for over 10 years now. And when I came, my sons were small.
I remember.
And just being able to have that pour in that I never had before helped me shift things on what I thought was right to what now I know is truly right.
Right. Right.
And then being able to have different resources now that I didn't even know was available to me when I was younger, as a, you know, out of wedlock father.
Right.
Being able to have those and use them will change a lot of dynamics for a lot of guys if they get away from what their friends will think,
Right.
what somebody else will think.
Right.
I think that'll change the game for a lot of them.
Daddy, so how does that make you feel? Because you talked about you not having a father, your biological father in the home, but I mean, there's a lot of people just in this area that are impacted by like you in that father figure role. So what is I guess you can translate, you know, your mental health and fathering, not just for your children and grandchildren, but just in a full spectrum. Because I mean, a lot of people rely on you for your father.
Well, you know, I guess as a kid, it's called me an old man and young man by the kids' mouth.
I can see it.
I've always hung around, you know, elderly people. When I say elderly people, mature men, not a lot of men, mature men, and I glean from them. Mr. Older Scott, I always speak to him all the time.
That's the one that paid you with donut?
Yeah.
Was it donut?
I mean, in fact, so I do that too now, pay people with ribs.
You did.
So,
Good
but-
pay.
We'll take.
but coming up, being around Mr. Scott kind of gave me the gauge, understanding what it like to be a father. He had 2 sons. One, unfortunately, one killed the other. No, in fact, one got killed. One killed the brother, gave him a heart attack, stress, and then the father killed the son.
Oh my
By
goodness.
mistake. It was a horrible event. But I remember Mr. Scott always, for that habit, emphasized the importance of, it was more showmanship more than tell me. I saw how he shopped at the grocery, back in that A&P grocery store. Well, Mr. Scott created the same wholesale purchase.
Probably did.
A&P was sell about 10 canned goods for like $2. Right then, I wish he could have that today. And he would take 5 of us kids in the neighborhood to the store with him. And I started watching how he operated. And then being a father, being a pastor has kind of afforded me, especially as a pastor, how to relate to other men in ministry of people in general. It's part of the call. It's like a natural thing for me. I don't try to do it. It just comes natural.
It comes down.
Yeah.
Pastor Mike, you're fatherly, and you're even outside of the church. You have everybody from here to like I don't think
California.
from the
In the beginning.
across the rivers. I'm like,
That
you
was
know
Mike.
everybody. You can't go nowhere and nobody don't know you. But I think it's because it's the same thing as dad. Like you have this thing about you that just attract immature men or males to you to make them mature, to grow them up. And so kind of give me your perspective, given your relationship with your father or what you saw and how you translate that now into fathering.
I think part of it happened because before I had a child, actually my mother used to always tell me, she said, you too crazy about children, you ain't gonna ever have a child of your own. Because I always had everybody else's kid. Even at the former church I was at, all the kids was always around me. And some of those same kids are grown and got children of their own now who still call me now and remember those times that I used to take them places and things like that. So when my son was born, I was really prepared to father. And I thought about what my father did that I wanted to do differently with my son. We talked, I shared stuff, even when he was small. I didn't do the baby talk and all that kind of stuff. I talked, hey, good morning, how are you doing? He couldn't even say nothing at all, that type of thing, because I wanted him to learn words.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And I've been asked that question before. What is it about me that I don't know? I think by nature, I'm a nurturer.
You are.
By nature, I'm a nurturer.
I don't have to say your spirit is just inviting.
It is.
There's nothing about you. I can speak from my own experiences being around you, but other people being around you as well. There's nothing about you that tells me you're going to harm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Kind of come out the president being there from the beginning, time. But but his demeanor and I tell Mike all this time that it's a gift, it's a special assignment in his life to kind of cultivate young males, especially young black males, because the dynamics that they face from reality of the absence of their father, or his father's in the home is drinking. Mental health is a major component of black men's life. We just haven't had the liberty to talk about it.
That's
right. It's been, suck it up, don't cry. You cry, that's weakness. So that is a part of the mental health breakdown, because who do you turn to? Why turn to devices? Extra marriage affair. These different things happen in our life because we don't have that covering as black men. And I'm saying based on being a black man. And that's why we have to really push each other, encourage each other.
And I think also we have not been honest with people.
That's right.
See, we don't tell the truth to folks about stuff when we are asked questions. about things.
We're hard.
And we're gonna
Yeah.
take a quick little short little break, free to speak people, and we'll be right back. We're gonna talk to these young men again and kind of get some perspectives on just what grinds your gears and how you guys go about your daily lives. Okay, we'll be back. Welcome back to Free to Speak. We had to do some adjusting with the mics. You know me, I'm a transparent person. So we got everybody situated and ready to go. But what I wanted to touch back on coming back was, as far as you guys, what can you tell us as women, as the other ethnicities and cultures, what can you tell us is important to you as a Black man?
But for me, as a Black male, in a country that we still have some things going on, for me, it's for my family to understand the importance of the respect, being honorable. I mean, honoring your father, because that's important. And because I'm a hard worker by nature, because after my family, that's important to me. As I get older, as I gotten older, my perspective is a lot different. So my tolerance is not like it used to be. A patient is much better than it used to be. So I kind of weigh things more. I think I was sharing a message one time about the choices that we make dealing with decision and, cognitive decision, because if you don't weigh it, things are getting next to you. So right now, I classify myself as being a seasoned, mature man. I can see the young father going the wrong way. I can see a young pastor going the wrong way. But to be able to articulate the message to another Black male, to our families, allow us to have that moment. Sometimes we need that moment just to kind of cool down.
And us women being okay with that. And I had to learn that from my mother, who's very wise. She's a very wise woman. She taught me to allow for it to be okay with men having their moments and not necessarily drill down. Because, before, if you were having a moment as my spouse or something, I would drill down because that was like red flags. I'm like, what's going on? But women, whatever camera we at, let's be supportive of our men while they're having those moments. It's detrimental to them. It's important to them that they have it. That's how you guys collect your thoughts, how you guys can get your plan together, so that way when you do come to notify your family of what the plan is moving forward, whatever that is, it's clear and concise and well thought out, and not having to worry about, my sister, husband, I'm sure, I love you, Mitras, but like we could be that. And I think it just comes from our care and our concern for you guys. But Dad is saying that for men, it's important, women, it's important for us to allow you guys to have your moment. So,
and along with that, before he speaks, I have a thing called the Nanta box. Ain't nothing going on.
I didn't think that was true, but it is.
It's nothing going on. It's nothing. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about anything to talk about. It has nothing to do with you or a person. It's just the nothing box. And I need that box to be able to be nothing.
I heard about the nothing box, but I thought it was just an excuse, bruh. I thought it was just an excuse, but it's a legit thing. And we can be okay, women. We don't have to take our past hurts out on the men that we've chosen to marry and move on in life with. We don't have to take that out on them. There is a nothing box. Y'all do have a nothing box. I'm trying to help y'all.
And I think that's why it's important. That's why I think it's important for men and women that in your past relationship, you have to get healed from that before you get in, because you bring all of that stuff into that present relationship that you had in the past.
Right.
And you need to resolve it.
You do.
Because I think even in situations when men are dealing with things, for instance, let's say a loss of a child. And most time what people do is they cater to the mother. Nobody says anything to the father.
Right.
As if he's not grieving either.
Right. And it's ignorance on I think everybody's part. Not considering that the father could potentially be just as hurt as the mother. I think we just automatically assume the mother is because she's the one that's carrying, she's the one that has the feels of it. But you guys are people with feelings and emotions. You guys have a lot on your shoulders that you carry. We're going to talk about a little bit too, with all that you guys carry, and then having to face the world and how the world perceives you guys. Like I can talk a long time about it because it irritates me. As a woman, I have a Black husband. Well, he says he's a Black husband, but he's mixed. He's Black, and I have Black children, and you guys are important to me, and you guys are Black men. I don't think other people recognize or realize the amount of stress and high level stress that we deal with as a community just because of this. We want our men to be safe. Like if my brother Eonte get pulled over, there's a certain level of anxiety. For me, for you, I know for Ametris, I'm gonna get a phone call. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't think anybody else understands that. And whether you have a history or not, with all that's going on, it's just that in the back of your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's issues there are things that you guys have to be conscious of in the public that other people don't have to be conscious of.
And that's a reality. I could speak from two different sides of the coin. When I was younger, I want to say it was my senior year in high school, me and a group of my friends, we just walk into the neighborhood store like we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
We got shot at. We ran onto the store because the neighborhood guy worked there knew us. And so we hid in the back area there. Police come. They talking to us, and they're asking us all the wrong questions.
Right.
Why are you in the neighborhood? Why are you wearing this? Why are you wearing that?
Right.
As if we are the suspect.
Right.
Sir, we called you.
Right.
The only time you believe us when a Caucasian lady who lives in the neighborhood came and was like, hey, I know all these boys. This is what happened.
Yeah.
So that right there was an onset of us having to fear who we, when we call the police.
When we
Are you gonna
call.
be on our side, or you going to think we're suspects.
Right.
Moving forward now, being in a home or just being where you're a father and you have to co-parent, I would send out a message to all parties involved. If a father is chastising children or putting something in place, do not disrupt him in that moment. Talk about it later. Because you don't want to set the tone of the kid seeing that he's getting shut down in front of them. So therefore his role gets diminished.
Right.
And when that happens, especially if you have male children, they don't see you in that strong light anymore. You're no longer the hero because now whoever shut you down is the hero.
Right.
They have more power over you.
Exactly.
And that right there can play a lot out in the future on how he can really control his family or his children. Co-parenting has a way of displacing all of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does.
When people don't know how to talk professionally and kindly to one another, to where you can just lay it on the table, see the cards for what they are, put them in their perfect place to where they're supposed to be, and go from there and say, hey, let's agree on this right here. This is how we're going to chastise the children. This is how we're going to do this portion right here. It's not about us not getting along. It's about what's in the best interest of the children. If they can get that into their minds on both sides, not just the other, not just the women, but the men also got to be like, okay, she might be right over here.
Right.
Let me see it from her way instead of me just throwing my chest up.
Right.
Because we can do that sometimes.
Right. And I'll say too, especially just as the mother, especially if you're the one that's primarily keeping the kids or with the kids, there is the insight that the other parent or the male, the father may not have because they're with you primarily, and vice versa. If the children are with the male, the father primarily.
That's how my dynamics was different because I had my kids by myself for a while.
Yeah.
And so, just to be honest and transparent, it was a little hard to take any type of insight from the other parent because
you had them primarily.
You haven't been there.
Right.
You don't know, their feelings. You don't know how to react to certain things.
Right.
So being able to take that in, it took some growing on my part.
Right.
Be like, God plays instincts into everyone, and she may have a little insight, even though right now my blinded eyes don't want to see it.
Right. I was gonna say I was flipping that too on the other side as far as if the man has the children primarily, co-parenting is difficult.
It is.
It is difficult, but it is something that when everybody put their emotions aside and keep the children in the forefront and not making it a win or lose battle, just keeping the children in the middle, I think that's how we can help with the next generation of Black boys and Black girls, and their mental health, like all the things that we talked about. The things like co-parenting and being healthy with it, and working together, co-parenting for especially for blended family, that's at least 4 people. There's 2 mommies and 2 daddies, you know what I'm saying? Like 2 sets of parents that it takes to raise just one child sometimes. And when you think about it, it wasn't the ideal, I think, plan that God designed, but when you think about it, just in our world, if one child had 4 adults supporting that one child mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, that child could foster and grow and bloom into amazing, wonderful things. I don't think we even understand that, how much effect, like the way I explain it to my kids is, you have extra family, you have extra support. You don't just have mommy, you have another mommy over here, you have another dad over here, because I don't get offended by my kids calling someone else mommy, because I know I'm mommy. So over there, you can call them mommy. That doesn't make me never mind. And I also know I'm a unicorn when it comes to that, because most mothers don't want their child calling another woman a mother. But we're gonna have to get over that, because it makes it, I feel, easier for the children when you just allow them to have that relationship with that woman and your child's father.
But I think the tragedy comes in when everybody's not on the same page as adults.
We make it about ourselves and not the children.
Yeah. And I think that's something that has to be, you have to have a sit down and address that, because I was in a co-parent situation. But one of the things I told my son was, that person is an adult. Now, if you think that he's treating you wrong, then you need to let me know, and I can handle it, because you're not an adult.
Right.
So you have to mind him. You in his house.
Right.
That's
right.
So, but you got to do that on both sides. So you can't treat me differently when I have him, and expect me to do something that you're not doing when you have.
Right. That's right.
See, we got to be the same. See, and that's where the problem comes in.
Yep.
It's kind of like, I used to be asked, well, who you taking them around? Well, who you taking them around? Come on.
We get worried up about things that are not even our concern. And that's where I think it crosses over into adult situations, and it's no longer about the children.
I think the problem in that situation was, that I'm involved in church. You already know what kind of folks I'm around.
But I think too, it's also a form of control that sometimes doesn't get stopped when relationships end. There's always a person that's more controlled than the other, and that person doesn't want to give up that power.
Right.
And so they use the children. Well, you can't do that because I don't want you taking them around. Have several seats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. It's a way of controlling.
It's personal. It's more personal. We forget, parents, we forget that it's about the children.
But
we can come together.
Too. Yeah.
We can come together and make it such a wonderful breeding ground for those children to grow, because they have extra support. But we just get so caught up in our own.
I'll tell you, just looking at blended families, and
it's rough, bruh. It's rough.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It is.
Because of the word you used before, control.
Mm-hmm.
Just say the dynamics is, just say myself and Mitras are on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say yourself and Randy on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Say we were the ones who had the children.
Right.
I can't control the temperature in your house.
Right.
That's good.
As much as I want things to go the way I want them to all the time,
Right.
I can't control the temperature over there, just the same way you can't control it over
Right.
here.
Right.
We have to come to an agreement somewhere and say, okay, while they're in your care, they're going to have to follow your rules, because I know you're not going to harm them.
Right. That's right.
That's the part that everybody has to come to understand.
Mm-hmm.
If there is going to be any harm, then other things come into play. But for the most part, meet at the table, set the agreement down, like, hey, I trust y'all. This is how it's going to be.
Right.
But unfortunately, nowadays, everybody's out for the tit for tat.
You can't
Everybody
sit
wants
down.
to be the person in control.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it tears out, and they forget the child is still in the middle.
Still.
But see, if you don't come to an agreement, because see, if over here you allow the child to stay up as long as they want to,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell them go to, and you know they got to go to school the next day. But they come to this house, they have to go to bed at a certain time. See, that's where the battle comes in when we don't have the same principles about raising the child. And that's why you got to come together to say these are the rules that we will have, because what it does, the kid ends up playing against both of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they want to be the victim.
And we end up losing.
Yep.
And the child loses. Because he in order for that child to navigate what they need to do, they have to play on both sides.
And that stresses the child.
It does.
Stresses the child
And
out.
it continues to perpetuate the generational things that we discussed, mental health issues, and not being able to cope with life. Because for children, we may not think that a divorce is traumatic, but for some children, that could be a very traumatic, especially if it was ugly. It can be a very traumatic experience for them. And so if we don't learn how to co-parent healthy, or, just have blended families, healthy blended families, we are continuing the very thing that we didn't want happening to us. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Definitely.
It doesn't stop.
Right.
Yeah, when my parents split, it had me looking like, where do I go?
Right.
I don't want to upset my mom because I love her. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to upset my dad. I love him just as equally.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, what do you choose and how are you going to make one feel?
Right.
At the end of the day, it was like, hey, you have the choice.
Yeah.
And for me, I initially went and lived with my mother. Because why? During my time, I didn't get to see her as much back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on over here. But then as time grew on, it's like, you know what? This isn't the best situation right now.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go back where it's a little more stable.
Right. Right.
So I went back and lived with my dad for the duration of my time in school until I was grown.
Mm.
And what I can say is during that time was when I think my father, for lack of better terms, grew up. He was more present emotionally than I ever seen him in the other 17 years of my life.
Wow.
As crazy as it may be to others, but it's certain things and dynamics that may happen in people's lives that shows them the error of their ways from before.
Mm.
And as a grown man, I came and talked to my dad about things like that because I had another set of siblings coming behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, do not treat them the way you treated the top six.
Right.
Reason being because they need love.
Yeah.
They need the emotional you that we never got.
That's right.
But I think a lot of times I hear the word love, especially in our culture, it's just in the church world, it's taken out of context.
Mm-hmm.
We think don't everything love meaning don't say nothing, in spite of their choice decision, and that's not. The best love is to help a person through the bad decision.
Correct.
Especially dealing with, and
Right.
I mean, being for a time, for mental health release, went to what was that, Murder Beach?
Yeah, sabbatical.
Sabbatical.
Mhm.
And we didn't do nothing but
Chill.
chill, went and got something to eat, got down in the jacuzzi, the sauna thing, and had that time talking with other people. Most of a lot of it was all with men. Then we walked to the restaurant, walked to the shop at, come back refreshed. Leave drained, come back refreshed. Because with me being a pastor, me being a business owner, now about to enter another part of operation in my life with a chaplainship.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot, but I can do a lot. But I'm still practicing maintaining good mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I like to ride my bike. I ain't ridden the way I want to, but I'm getting back to that. I always say, well, I'm only ride about once a week, but at least that one time, that'd be my time. That 2-hour ride I do, I cut my phone out. No one can call me for that time being. So it helps me with my mental health when it comes down as a black man.
Yes, riding your bike, staying healthy.
Yeah, staying healthy, because when I ride my bike, not like somebody they go for a long ride. I'm not like a truck ride, a bike, a car ride. Some men do motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can hold here riding the most. Me, it's to ride my bike. It gives me a chance to think and just be in a whole different world. It's kind of like, you look at a black male child, any child, they got ours, what they call the car?
RC?
Yeah, but the one that you move by hand.
Hot Wheels.
We go into a fantasy world, of a world that it doesn't have no danger, no requirement, and you're enjoying it. As me as a man and a black man, I ride my bike, or I like grilling. Yeah, I do things that makes me feel good.
We like it too.
Yeah.
We like when you grill too.
Yeah, that's why I start selling.
But I think that's what many of us gonna have to start doing,
Mhm.
is finding things. It's a way to release things.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, because a lot of people say, well, why you drive so far to work? Well, it helps me because that's when I process stuff.
Right.
It's when I'm driving. I'm processing things. When I'm going, I get there more refreshed than I'm in a lot of traffic trying to rush to get there. You know, type of thing.
Right.
So it makes a difference. And, you know, that's what you got to do. You know, I play the little games and things like
I was
that.
going to say the number.
Because I used to do it 30 minutes before I left work.
Okay.
Which means it got my mind off of work, so you don't take this stuff home, and then you end up having kick the dog syndrome.
Right.
You know, when you get home. So you got to get rid of that stuff before you start dealing with family.
That's right.
It's wild that you say that kick the dog syndrome, because that's what me and my top siblings went through. My dad coming home. And we lived in the emotion of, when we get our car coming to the driveway, everybody get right. Everybody get away, let him have his space, stay away from him. Because when he first came home, it was like every little thing would set him off. And we didn't want to be a part of that line of carnage, as we used to call it. You know, it was like coming in as Tasmanian devil. Left in the wake is
It's a missile.
yeah. But, I'm blessed to say that he did change.
That's good.
That's good.
As you know, as far as I can see, right now, the pour in that I receive from him now is 200% more than what I ever got from when I was younger.
That's good. That's
And,
good.
You know, I till this day, my sons say, I tell them, man, go talk to your grandfather.
That's what.
You know, he's a person now that I can send him to.
Right.
Before, I wasn't doing it.
Right.
But now, you know, the person that he is, the change has come in. Oh yeah, definitely.
And that comes with maturity and of life.
Yeah.
Right.
Now some men do. Now all men don't. But when you come to I call it full circle, you realize I got a second chance.
That's right.
Maturity, I can do it different now. I can enjoy it better.
Y'all are in my next topic, because I was just going to talk about overcoming past mistakes and how, you know, how you guys relate that or talk to, like you were saying, your dad talks and spend time with your sons because of his past mistakes. He now know it's important to speak good to your children. So overcoming past mistakes, because we all have done them. We all carry them, you know, especially in the Christian world. Sometimes I think we carry it. You know, you were just having a conversation with me not too long ago about us carrying our mistakes. We don't necessarily drop them as quickly as God forgives us of them. We carry them. And I don't know if it's just a way of us doing it so we can already call it forward before someone else calls it. You ain't got to tell me, because I already, like, I don't know if we do it like Kevin Hart talks about, you know, he became a comedian because he used to get picked on. And so he used to just crack on himself first so you wouldn't crack on him. So I don't know if that's how we do our mistakes. We hold them. But I was just talking to this wise man yesterday about not necessarily carrying that. You know, once God has forgiven you of that, you are no longer that at all. You don't have to hold it. So what would you guys say is the key to overcoming your past mistakes and actually dropping it and not have it ready to throw when someone tries to point fingers?
Especially young people that I talk to that made mistakes about things. First, you got to stop beating yourself up.
Right.
And you have to forgive yourself.
That's right.
Not just in words. You truly have to forgive yourself for that.
Right.
Because you know, you have some people saying, well, I wasn't supposed to do that. I wasn't supposed to. Yeah. And I think you mentioned it today in your message when people say, I'm stupid. I made a stupid mistake. Yeah. But you got to forgive yourself.
You do.
And I think that's the first thing that we have to realize is that God has forgiven us already. We have to forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have to move forward.
Move forward.
Now, we do have to prepare ourselves for people who come and may say stuff. And I think if we can admit that we made that mistake, yeah, I did that, but that's not me anymore.
Right.
And move forward.
Move forward.
And sometimes you might have to tell people, listen, please don't bring that up again.
I tell people, I used to tell folks too, the difference between mine and yours, that I know about yours. I mean, you know about mine, but I don't know about yours. Okay. And that'll shut people up real quick. Like,
So you just listen to everybody speak. I'm just reminded of something my mother-in-law was telling me. When I first proposed to Ametris, one of the ladies on her job was like, hey, thinking right there, been to prison. First thing she told him, we know.
right.
It's not a hidden secret. or
Right,
anything.
right.
And so some people do want to hold you accountable for your past, not realizing that you moved on.
That's right.
And just looking at the hindsight of everything, with these issues with men, they have to realize, okay, whatever the issue is that you're beating yourself up about, face it.
Face it.
Go and hit it head on.
Acknowledge it.
Understand it. If there's anything else that can be done with it, solve it, let it go.
That's right.
I tell everybody that I run into serenity.
Mm-hmm.
Use serenity prayer. If you can control anything of it, control that part that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot, release it and let it go, because all you do is just bringing up stuff, beating yourself up with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let it go. Move on past that. Now, once you've forgiven yourself, blot it away like God has. Don't bring it back up.
That's right.
And like you're saying, don't allow nobody else to put it back on you either.
That's right.
It's kind of in the
Stop
writing.
'em.
David, in his Psalms, he says, my sins ever before me. But that's his own. But these things also is a reminder
Mm-hmm.
of not to do it again.
Right.
Remind, how would I handle this same situation? How would I go about doing it differently? And for me, that's why I say I gained this I call it serenity, sovereign, not sovereign, but this peace,
Serenity.
that I don't have to answer you right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to try to go tighten that boat right now. I can let me think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I go do it out of frustration, it's gonna mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a being able to say, you know what, I can't do everything, but what I can do, I'll do that.
That's right.
Right.
That's the part of overcoming your past, is knowing what you can and cannot do, and being okay with that, and not allowing the spirit of condemnation to come amongst us, amongst you guys, since we're talking about the males today, amongst you, the men, because whether the world wants to acknowledge it or not, Black men are very important in our households, very important. And apparently they must be important to the world, because they are one of the few genres and ethnic groups that people try to come down on. And just like we talk in our Christian walk, the enemy don't attack stuff that's not important. You know what I'm saying? So what we have to kind of recognize is, how we as women can be more supportive of our Black men and brown men in our communities, in our homes, in our churches, at our schools, with our babies, because there's a reason for the attack. There's a reason why the lives are not valued as much as, I hate to bring it up, who's the guy, the football player with the dog, and when he did some Michael Vick. Like, a Black man's life is not as important is less important than a dog.
Mm-hmm.
That's because, just in our Christian thoughts, the way we were brought up in our training, it's because God has a purpose and a plan for our Black men. And what we have to do as women, and what I wanted you guys to come on the show and talk about, is just how we can be supportive of that. And I thank you guys for coming in and talking to me. Do you guys have any final points that y'all want to kind of speak to?
I'd like to say thank you for inviting us to the show to talk. And I hope that we have future conversations.
Absolutely.
There's a lot going on.
It's a lot.
And when you talk about Black men, sometimes the society look on the negative thing, and so you make it a race card. But it's a reality.
It's a reality.
We live with. So
we can do a whole nother 2 hours on just Black men and society, but
in America,
I think that, I think it, and that's why I love Free to Speak, is because it's exactly what that is. I'm a Black woman with Black husbands, Black dads, Black brothers, Black Uncle Pastor Mikes, and Black children. And so these are the things that I deal with. I'm concerned when the police pull over a family member of mine. That's a concern for me. That, regardless, even if it's dad or Beyonce, because they're two different men. They have two different paths, but the concern is still high.
Yeah.
For my husband to come home, he has a past. So when he comes home after maybe having an interaction with a police officer, that, me having the, thank you, Lord, you made it home, is a lot different than my Caucasian counterpart. It's just different. And that's why Free to Speak is Free to Speak, because it's just the facts. Now, we can argue, we don't like it. They may not like it. You may not like it, but it's just the facts. And that's why we have this platform. And I definitely want you guys to come back. Beyonce, you had something else you wanted to speak to?
Well, I was just going to say that just especially just talking to the males, we have to understand ourselves and respect ourselves.
Absolutely.
And being, or should I say, wanting to be held as a father is a gift from God.
It is.
And we got to hold it and hold ourselves in accountability for that position. In order for us to be treated by society in a brighter light, we have to first treat ourselves in that same light and pass the same energy on to our
Absolutely.
seeds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we was talking about, generation. When we've
you have to
seen
be
it.
the change that you want to see.
Yeah, you have to be the change you want to see. That's a good one. Uncle Pastor Mike?
What I would like to share is for those men out there who may not be in the same household with their child, is to somehow be in their lives. And I will hope that the mother will allow that. Because I think fathers need to understand that they have such a powerful impact on their children, boys and girls, that if the father, and research shows that if a father is involved, they're more likely to finish school.
Right.
They're more likely to stay out of jail. They are more likely to do well in life.
That's right.
Just by that father being present.
Right.
Not necessarily always able to stay in there, but be able to share and give wisdom and guidance to that child.
Just making sure that when they're there, that they're bringing something, being healthy.
That you have not quantity of time,
right,
but quality of time.
But also, too, Uncle Pastor Mike, just expound on the importance that if and when they are given the capabilities to be with their children, that they're bringing positivity and not just being there to be there, but you're causing chaos in homes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, not only that, you not causing chaos for anybody, but to be there for the right reason.
Right.
To be there to spend time with your children.
Right.
Not to take them to somebody else to keep.
Yes.
Right.
That's not fathers spending time with their children.
Right.
And there are a lot of inexpensive things you can do. You got to eat anyway, so why not just get a meal and go sit out in the park and eat?
Absolutely.
That's something different.
Absolutely.
So it's real simple.
Absolutely.
So
I just had to have you clarify because you got flips of the coins and somebody
it needs to be positive. Well, it needs to be positive. Whoever it is.
That's the thing. That's why I want you to add.
Positivity is what caused them to be elevated.
Absolutely.
To the right area that they need to be in.
You have people that'll just kind of pick what people say and then use it for and then they'll say, well, you said, Pastor Mike said we need to be and
No, we need to be positive.
Clarify for them.
There's a lot of negative out there that they going to get anyway.
Anyways, right.
So we have to offset that by giving them positive things.
So he made me think about something as well. Just being where I've been with all my children, for my older ones, I was involved in a program called FBI, Fathers Being Involved. And now they have All Pro Dads. I've been a part of all those programs. And I have to say, for the men, we have to show up.
Yeah.
When you say you're going to be there for your children,
be there.
I'm going to tell you, I had many days when I was tired from work. Didn't want to drag myself out of bed to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. But I showed up because, one, that child's face when they know somebody's there that cares.
That's right.
The ability for them not to be embarrassed because they turn around and you're not there.
Right.
I know how that felt when I was growing up. You're scanning the whole scene looking for your person. I'm gonna just say your person because that's how you're feeling inside. And everybody else finds there and their joy on their face is like, where yours at?
Right.
Yeah.
And you never get that ability to say, oh, there's mine. For all fathers right now, be there. Show up for the field day events. Show up for the academic events. Show up for the sports events.
Everything you
Don't
can.
pick and choose which ones because you come only just for the sports. What is that telling the child?
Right.
You know, you don't think they're smart enough?
Right.
Because that's what they'll start thinking.
That's right.
Or if you show up just for the academic events, oh, you don't think I'm athletic enough? I can't do both. And you don't want to shine a light on either one of them where you show up for this or more than the other.
Right.
Because then that'll be a division between the children that we don't even realize because kids talk.
They do.
Especially if they have different fathers.
They do. They talk. And it already breeds that, especially what you were talking, competition.
Sibling rivalry.
And it's going to happen anyway because me and my brother have the same mama and daddy, but we still had sibling rivalry, and we girl and a boy, and we had sibling rivalry. So it happens. So I just want to say again, thank you guys for coming on the show and talking. And I know we will have another one where we can kind of get into some real other stuff. I think we kind of touched on a little bit of everything, but we'll have some more shows with you guys and other men and come on and kind of talk and sit on the couch or whatever we have at the time for Free to Speak. So thank you so much as well for watching. Please remember that if you want to see any past episodes from Free to Speak, you can go check me out on YouTube at Free to Speak Podcast. You can go to Instagram and Facebook, and they're all the same, Free to Speak Podcast. If you want to send me an email, you can email me at Free2SpeakFTS@gmail.com. That's FREE, the number 2, SPEAK, FTS@gmail.com. Thank you guys again for being on here. Thank you for watching. Remember that this is a place where we are going to be whole, be authentic, and be free to speak. Bye.
Man, I learned in my life to put God over commas, God over drama. Yeah, that's how I became an overcomer.